15,000 years ago, wolves were cold-blooded killers. A single wolf could tear you apart before you even had time to scream. They hunted in coordinated packs, moved like shadows through the forest, and answered to absolutely no one. So here's the question that should be keeping you up at night. Why does the dog sleeping on your couch right now only know how to roll over and beg for belly rubs? Here's a hint. Humans did not go out and capture wolves. What actually happened was a sneaky, mutually beneficial con job, and once you hear the full story, you will never look at your pet the same way again. Stick around for the next 9 minutes, because this is one of the strangest deals in the history of our species. Let's start by busting the myth that almost everyone believes. Most people imagine early humans running through the woods with clubs and nets, snatching baby wolves from their dens. Then, according to this myth, humans beat the wildness out of them the way a circus trainer breaks a lion. That version makes for a dramatic movie scene, but it is almost completely wrong. Wolves live in incredibly strict social packs with their own chain of command. If you kidnapped a wolf pup, the rest of the pack would not simply shrug it off. They would hunt down your entire tribe, and they would not stop until the debt was settled. No early human in their right mind would risk starting a blood feud with an apex predator's extended family. So if humans did not tame the wolves, who did? The astonishing answer is that wolves tames themselves. During the depths of the Ice Age, food was brutally scarce for every creature on the landscape. A handful of wolves, the outsiders of their packs, the low-ranking omega wolves that got the worst scraps at every meal, stumbled onto something incredible. Just outside human camps, there were piles of leftover food waste, bones, and scraps from the day's hunt. Instead of risking their lives chasing down deer and mammoths, these wolves realized there was an easier way to eat. They became the world's first unpaid garbage collectors, and in exchange, they got to feast on leftover mammoth bones without lifting a paw in real danger. It sounds almost too simple to be true, but this small shift in behavior changed the course of history. Now let's talk about how this arrangement slowly turned into an actual partnership. At first, humans were terrified when they noticed these wolves lingering just outside their camps. Wolves were still wild, still dangerous, and still very much capable of killing a person. But over days, weeks, and eventually years, something interesting happened. Humans started to notice that when these wolves hung around, other predators kept their distance. Leopards, cave bears, and other large carnivores were far less likely to approach a camp guarded by a pack of wolves. In other words, humans had accidentally invented the world's first alarm system, and it ran entirely on leftover food. This single realization may have been the turning point that changed everything. Once humans understood the wolves were useful, the relationship deepened fast, and it came with some surprising benefits. The first and most obvious benefit was hunting. Wolves had an extraordinary sense of smell that humans simply did not have. Humans, on the other hand, had spears, coordination, and the ability to plan ahead. Put those two skills together, and you get an unstoppable hunting team that could take down prey neither species could catch alone. But hunting was not the only advantage, and this next one might genuinely surprise you. In the freezing cold of an Ice Age winter, humans needed every possible source of warmth to survive the night. Wolves, it turns out, made excellent living blankets. The colder the night became, the more wolves a person needed curled up beside them just to avoid freezing to death. This is actually where the old expression, "a three-dog night," comes from, describing a night so cold you needed 3 dogs just to stay warm enough to sleep. And then there is the third benefit, which might be the most heartwarming discovery of all. Wolves have an incredibly strong instinct to protect their pack, and that instinct did not disappear once they started living near humans. While adults went out to gather food or hunt, tamed wolves would stay behind near the camp. They acted as built-in babysitters, watching over young children and warding off snakes or other dangers while the grown-ups were away. Imagine that, an apex predator voluntarily working the night shift as prehistoric daycare. Now here comes the part of the story that connects directly to the dog sleeping in your living room today. Why did a fearsome, muscular predator eventually turn into a Chihuahua that shakes at the sound of a doorbell? Why do we now have squished-faced pugs, tiny, trembling teacup breeds, and corgis with stubby legs and enormous round bellies? The answer lies in something scientists call artificial selection. As humans continued living alongside these wolves, they naturally kept the calmer, friendlier, less aggressive individuals close by. Generation after generation, humans were unintentionally selecting for gentleness rather than raw hunting power. Over thousands of years, this consistent selection pressure physically reshaped the animal's genetics. Levels of adrenaline and other aggression-related hormones dropped significantly compared to their wild ancestors. As those hormone levels changed, physical traits shifted right along with them. Ears that once stood alert and pointed began to flop. Snouts that were long and built for tearing through prey grew shorter and rounder. And tails that once stayed rigid with predatory focus started to wag with pure, uncomplicated joy. Scientists actually have a name for this rapid transformation, and they call it the domestication syndrome. It turns out that selecting animals purely for friendliness has strange side effects that ripple through the entire body. Floppy ears, shorter snouts, curlier tails, and patches of different colored fur all tend to appear together, almost as a package deal. Researchers have even recreated a miniature version of this process using silver foxes on a Russian fur farm, breeding only the calmest individuals for just a few decades. Within a shockingly short number of generations, those wild foxes started developing floppy ears and wagging tails, just like dogs. That experiment gave scientists solid proof that the same transformation happened naturally with wolves, only it played out over thousands of years instead of decades. And this brings us to something even more fascinating: the incredible diversity of dog breeds we see walking around today. Every single breed, from a towering Great Dane to a tiny teacup Pomeranian, traces its ancestry back to those same Ice Age wolves. Humans did not just select for friendliness. They eventually started selecting for very specific jobs and specific looks. Some wolves were bred to herd sheep, some were bred to guard livestock, and some were bred simply because their owners liked how they looked. Within just a few thousand years, one single species split into hundreds of distinct shapes, sizes, and personalities. No other animal on the planet shows this much physical variation within a single species, and it all traces back to that first fateful decision to raid a human trash pile. Now here is the twist that flips this entire story on its head. 15,000 years ago, wolves signed an unofficial contract to work for humans in exchange for food and safety. 15,000 years later, the tables have completely turned. Modern dogs do not hunt for their food, they do not guard against predators out of necessity, and they certainly do not sleep outside in the cold. Instead, they lounge on memory foam beds, eat gourmet food that costs more than some human meals, and demand belly rubs on command. Meanwhile, humans go to work every single day, specifically to earn money to buy that food and those beds. So really, ask yourself honestly, who domesticated who in this story? That sleepy, food-obsessed creature currently napping in your home is the living result of one of the most successful business deals in the history of our species. It started as a simple trade of table scraps for protection and companionship, and somehow, over 15,000 years, the wolves came out on top. So do something to honor your ancestors and give credit where it is due. If you are currently owned by a dog, or if you are the loyal servant of a cat, type the name of your household boss in the comments right now. Let's see exactly how many of us are proud, willing servants in this ongoing prehistoric business arrangement. Hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next great historical con job we uncover. If this story blew your mind, imagine what our ancestors were doing with the rest of their spare time back in the Stone Age. There are plenty more strange, hilarious, and surprisingly clever survival tricks buried in prehistoric history, and we are just getting started uncovering them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.